Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only weather forecast right through until next week, recorded on Wednesday, the 26th of November. Thunderstorms and polar changes. Those are the two main themes of the forecast as we go to the end of November and kick off the start of December. Take a look at the satellite imagery from this morning. Thunderstorms exploding around parts of New South Wales. Some of these could be severe today as the energy tracks eastwards. Although if you look at them, see these thunderstorms bubble up and drift eastwards. And as it does that, another lot forms behind it. And so you can have repetitive sort of lines of thundery downpours that keep hitting the same spot. And you might be just up the road, inside and underneath the exact same risk area, getting no rain at all. That is the nature of thunderstorms, that is the nature of instability. And so we're going to be seeing more of that around New South Wales and Queensland in particular, but also Victoria and the southeast corner of Australia over the next couple of days. And then it all starts all over again, coming from the west and drifting eastwards as we go into the start of next week. So a number of things going on, as well as some big high pressure zones that are about to come in and dredge up some southerly winds, but also bring some drier stretches of weather. Here is the air pressure map at the moment. So low pressure south of Tasmania, low pressure south of Western Australia. Both of these low pressure zones, the one south of Tassie, that's a decent storm. The one south of Western Australia, pretty weak. But both of these lows have a high pressure zone just to the left-hand side of them. And what does that do? Well, in between the low and the high, there's your southerly. Both areas, southerly winds coming through. Now that might be more westerly across New South Wales, Victoria, before that colder airflow kind of moves in tonight and into Thursday. But those are, these are southerly changes that are dominating Australia's weather for at least the next couple more weeks. So the spring weather pattern is not ending just yet as tropical energy, including ex-tropical cyclone Fina, continues around the north of the country. So here is the thunderstorm risk going into this afternoon. Similar to yesterday, we're still seeing a lot of the red shaded areas popping up. That is the severe area. Now, as we just saw with the lightning maps, thunderstorms can bubble up, fall apart, drift in one direction. A lot of things can move and shape them. So this is just a snapshot at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. Obviously, things could change a couple of hours before that, a couple of hours after that, but this just gives you an idea that generally speaking, right across Queensland and mainly by the end of today anyway, the northeastern half of New South Wales, doesn't mean that there won't be anything else behind it all, but most of that energy moves further into the northeast by later today. But when we recorded this, a lot of that energy was further to the south. So things are always moving, is the point I'm trying to make. And keep an eye on the Bureau of Meteorology's rain radar. If you can find their old website, I know it was easier to look at the radar network on that. But that is the best way to track these thunderstorms, because some of them will disappoint you. If you want rain, they may form just down the road from you and you miss out. There'll be other people that get far more rain than they were expecting. So that is the nature of the instability we've got. But generally over the next few days, that energy goes northwards and then another lot forms out to the west. So let's not get ahead of myself. Thursday's set up. Thunderstorms still around Queensland, the Northern Territory, and the eastern sides of Western Australia, but also into northern and northeastern parts of New South Wales. Can't rule out one or two forming elsewhere. And the other main change happening is the polar boundary, returning once more to Tasmania, west to southwest winds, Hobart, colder weather coming for you. Windy weather as well, with the storm south of Australia. That's going to encourage windy westerlies, which are just getting up to the 90k range. If you're colorblind or vision impaired, you may be a little harder to see this, but really around the hilltops and ranges of Tasmania, you're seeing wind gusts of 90 k's an hour. And along the Great Dividing Range and most of the mountains and ranges, hills around eastern and southeastern Australia, gusty conditions coming through, the red shading getting just up to gale force gusts, not sustained at that speed. So this is just showing it's going to be a bit blustery, but maybe nothing too majorly serious. As we go through to the Thursday afternoon thunderstorm risk map, still getting some thunderstorms, possibly severe in the northeast corner of New South Wales. Once more, this is a snapshot into the mid-afternoon. This is not showing the whole day risk zone. And again, you go into Queensland, you're seeing a line of convergence and thunderstorms around the hills, around the coastline, and then this new forming area in Western Australia producing some very heavy downpours and thunderstorms there as well. And that could affect places like Alice Springs and Uluru, Ayers Rock. So tourist areas could be getting affected by severe thunderstorms. There's also low pressure now forming over South Australia. Same thing's going to happen, right? You've got a southerly wind coming in. You've got tropical heat being pulled down. The low here just north of Whyalla, that is responsible for mixing it all up. And so severe thunderstorms likely from parts of South Australia into the Northern Territory in particular. And you've got westerly winds, again, still around Tasmania, mostly dry, around New South Wales, at least into the later part of the day. So the thunderstorm risk map on Friday afternoon certainly shows those areas around Ceduna, further northwards to Alice Springs and everyone in between. That is an area to keep a close eye on because a severe thunderstorm is worse than a normal thunderstorm. It can produce much bigger hail, much heavier rainfall, and can cause flash flooding and other problems. So that's why we mention it and we highlight it as possibly severe. But you can also see a clearance coming in through parts of Queensland as we go into Friday. So that southerly kind of change that's trying to go northwards, you can see it here on Saturday still going northwards. And now the thunderstorms that were over in South Australia, they drift further eastwards, still affecting South Australia, but also coming now into Victoria and the border of New South Wales. Pretty much dry though in the ACT, but you never know, late in the day could be some thundery downpours forming. And the polar boundary still very close to Australia, which means temperatures are down along the southern coastline, but particularly the southeast. Now, as we go into Sunday, I'm kind of wanting to show you Monday because that's the one that interests me more. But here on Sunday, you can see the polar boundary going northwards once more, going far further northwards than any of the polar changes we're getting over in New Zealand. And considering New Zealand's further south, that's kind of interesting. But we're seeing here this polar boundary returning again. Now this high in Western Australia producing a windy easterly for those of you in the southern third of Western Australia. The top 2/3 got more humidity, more heat and thunderstorm risks. Same with the Northern Territory. Queensland again, severe thunderstorm risks, especially around the Great Dividing Range. But it's this polar change in the south. Here we go, Monday, the 1st of December on the map. And you can see this is a colder change sweeping through. The polar boundary coming up and into South Australia, only a small portion of it, but you only have to be nearby. You'll feel the temperatures down. Take a look at your local forecast, doesn't matter who it's from. You will more than likely see temperatures down on Monday along the coastal south, especially going into Victoria and Tasmania. Showers, squally, heavy, you know the drill. You've been in it for the last few months. And that southerly flow goes all the way into Queensland and it sort of dries the skies out to a large degree. But on the other side of that tropical boundary, that's where the heat and the humidity and the tropical airflow still is. So severe thunderstorms from the northern rivers right along the spine of the main Great Dividing Range. That's where we'll see thunderstorms, and around Catherine, the top end, severe thunderstorm risk and spilling over into the Kimberley. And our final map here on Tuesday shows a very powerful high pressure zone close to Adelaide over the Great Australian Bight. That's producing a cooler or colder, depending on how you look at it, south to southeasterly that comes into New South Wales. Obviously inland areas, you're still hot. I'm talking about the coastal zones where the wind comes straight off the sea. A chance of still some thunderstorms around Queensland, but look, the red tropical boundary should give you a bit of a break from the humidity once we get into Tuesday. But the flip side is, now it's being dragged down further southwards in Western Australia. So unsettled weather around Australia with the normal tropical thunderstorms that are bubbling up as well. But that is a very big high pressure zone expanding out as we go into next week. And before I go, let's take a look at the next 7 days rainfall. You can see obviously the thunderstorms that are already around at the moment, but let's go through the next week and you can see what is going to be happening. So some very heavy falls around parts of Queensland. You're talking about 150 millimeters. That might be lowballing it in some spots. You know, if you get a severe thunderstorm that gets kind of stuck, can't be blown away, move around, it can really, really break rainfall maps. If you know that, then you're not likely to be as surprised when it happens, but that is a possibility, certainly into Queensland. The Northern Territory and the top half of Western Australia, at least on the eastern side, seeing some heavy downpours, and we've got some rain coming through into the southeast of Australia too with those polar changes and maybe some more thunderstorms. So it's a busy time of year. We're seeing the spring weather pattern going right into December this year. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, but just because I'm saying that doesn't mean it's going to be cold for everybody. Certainly we're seeing the heat up now in many parts around Australia. That is all from me. I'll be back again tomorrow, Thursday, with our next Australia-only weather forecast.